Art is the way that human beings make sense of human experience. Art is a way that human beings have, not just of living life, but of reflecting on life, of representing their experience, their emotions and their feelings and their thoughts. And often human beings do that not just by living life, but by making things, by representing things in images or in music or in film or in dance. There are all different kinds of ways in which human beings make meaning of what it means to be human. And that's essentially what art is, that activity of making something of the experience of being human. For me, my childhood consisted of many different kinds of interests and endeavors, many different pursuits, including music and dance, lots of reading books and going to museums and being interested in the visual arts. I think it's because of my family, we had at least one artist in my family, my aunt, who was a dancer, a ballerina, and there was a heavy interest in music on the part of my grandparents. And I think that I grew up in a family that always felt that the arts were important. They were an important part of what it meant to be an educated person who really would reflect on what the issues were, the issues that faced our society, and what it meant for each individual to have some sense of identity and who one is. I think that they felt, my family, that you couldn't do that only through science or through social science, but that there was something really essential about the arts that would give children especially a sense of themselves, a sense of exploration, because you can't say, if you look at a painting or if you listen to a piece of music or if you go to the theater and watch a play or if you watch a film, you can't say with utter certainty, what is that thing? What is the meaning? There is no one right answer. And I think that the experience of having multiple interpretations was very important. And that is why I think in my later life, because I had such a background in the arts as a child, I found it important to explore different ways of knowing the world. And you cannot do that without familiarity with different kinds of disciplines. So for example, if you study philosophy, that's a different way of understanding the human experience than, say, economics or, say, music or sociology or history. But they are all important ways in which human beings have tried to tell the story of what our society is about and who we are. And they come to different kinds of conclusions, they use different kinds of methods, and that is all a very important part of human life. And I think that you can't really know what it is to be human without having those experiences. And so I do think this interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary experience was formative to my life, and it happened because I had early exposure to the arts as a child. Yes, I think that the role of the arts is manifold, but to take the individual has an individual journey through life. And through that journey, it's, there's a periodization. There are eras in their life. There are days, there are weeks and years, and we have just naturally in the way that we live and the way that we live in society ways of periodizing and organizing our lives. And what the arts does is that it helps us to do that, to mark the passage of time, to register change, to represent difference and similarity, to compare and contrast. And these are all methods and tools through which the individual has some sense of what life is, what is the life that he or she is living. And that, I think, is a very, very, very important individual journey to go through, to not just to live, but also to have a dialogue with people and with ideas. And one way to do that is by engagement with the arts. You are communicating with individuals who have had experiences that may be either similar or different, but that comparison happens through conversations. And you can have conversations with people, but you can also have conversations with the work that people have done, things that they have left behind. A work of art, when you look at it, it's a way of saying a human being was here, and a human being made something. And they made something that has meaning. It had meaning for them, and it might have a meaning for you. And that's what the individual journey is. I think for society, art is incredibly crucial because it's a way that society has of experiencing critique from the individual artist, of being represented. How can we really understand what society is? Of course, there's lots of political discourse and sociological discourse, and you can read in the newspaper, but what art does is it captures things that cannot necessarily be expressed in all those kinds of media. And they may not be precise ideas, they may have more to do with the emotions or with the spirit of the time, something about the social mood. But when you see a work of art and you can locate it in a social context, that gives you a sense of what kind of society produced that work. And the wonderful thing about that experience of engagement with an object that has a social context is that through that specificity of context, you also get a sense of the universality of human experience. If there's a society that has plenty of food and resources and people are comfortable, but you also tell me that that society doesn't have any art, I would say that that is not a rich society, but that is an impoverished society. Because what is ultimately the meaning that people make in society? It is not only in the cars they drive and the clothes they wear and the kinds of restaurants they go to, but rather it's also in the ways that they look upon and reflect on themselves, reflect on what meanings they derive from their lives. And so I think that it is very important for the arts to have very strong support, because we all, of course, enjoy things like movies, Hollywood films, and music, like pop music. That is art as well, but those often are driven by the people who are able to make a profit. And not all art, some art, but not all art can be profit-making ventures. And it's very important in a society to have both kinds, to have a market for art, but also to have support for art that would not necessarily flourish and survive if only the motive of a profit were the thing that made it stay afloat. My favorite thing to do with my children is to take them to a concert or to a dance performance or a theater and to a museum. So I would say, take your children to a museum, take your children to a concert.